Lindsay Brenner, and I'm going to teach you how to make these recycled cardboard robots today. And this can be for grades 2 through 4. And the materials you will need are recycled cardboard and space to be creative, and paper, scissors, glue, and a pencil, and maybe an eraser and markers, and if you have sequins or foil that you want to use to add some shiny parts to your robot, you can get that, and also some glue. And the instructions will be, first we will get our recycled cardboard and get all our materials ready. And you can find cardboard maybe from a box that you got a package in, and ask your parents if you can cut it up and use it for your project. And then you will need to organize your space and find a table or an area to start creating your robot. And then we will get some paper and sketch out our ideas and brainstorm what kind of robot we want to make. And then we will, from those ideas we make, we will draw on our cardboard the shape of the robot we want to make. And then we'll cut out that shape, and then we'll draw some different decorations on the robot, and we will choose which shapes we want to cut to glue onto the robot. And then we're going to glue our shapes onto our robot, and they might be little buttons or different robotic things that you can add onto your robot to make it look cool. And then after that, we're going to color your robot with markers, or you could also choose to paint it, or you could also just leave it with plain cardboard, depending on how you want your robot to look. And those are the basics of our project today. And when you create a raised image, that's called relief. And that is from the Latin verb that's relevo, and that means to raise. And you can see that it's raised up a little bit. And you can also decide if you want your robot to be symmetrical, which means that it's the same on both sides, or asymmetrical, which means that both sides are different. And let's get started. Hi guys, we're going to start beginning our robot project now. So first you need to get your paper and your pencil and just brainstorm a couple of ideas that you might want to use for your robot. So this is just the preliminary sketch ideas that you might want to use to come up with different ideas. Sometimes robots have buttons, or you can think about what type of face that you want on your robot. Is it going to be big or small, or have lots of details, or have different features on its face? You could just brainstorm different ideas. And so for my robot that we're creating today, I want to use a shape kind of like this shape. So I'm going to find my recycled cardboard, which is over here, and I'm just going to draw a similar shape to the shape that I sketched out on my paper. So my robot has a head and it has arms going down like this, and it has 2 legs. And you can be creative and use your imagination and make your robot however you want, because this is your own project. So once you've created a robot shape on your cardboard, you get your scissors and carefully cut out the shape that you made. And since cardboard is a little bit hard to cut sometimes, you can ask an adult to help you if you need some help. So just cut carefully and watch where you're going with your sharp scissors. And you can cut off extra pieces if it makes it easier for you to cut out your outline. You can chop off the extra pieces around the shape so that it's easier to cut the cardboard. So I'm just kind of cutting around the outline little by little until I cut it all out. And I'm just going around the little sketch that I made carefully, just like that. And you can see that I'm just cutting off the parts that are around the sketch so that it's easier to cut. So just while you're cutting, just be careful and look closely what you're cutting so that you stay safe. We almost have our robot shape. I'm just finishing up cutting his legs, or her legs. It might be a girl or a boy robot. So now we have our beginning robot shape. So now if you want to, you can draw some ideas on your robot before you make your shapes for the relief, or you can just create some shapes to glue on and just improvise. So it's up to you how you want to decorate your robot. So for right now, I'm just going to choose to improvise, which means that I'm just not going to make an official plan. I'm just going to make some shapes to glue on. So I'm going to reuse some of these scraps that I have here. And lots of times robots have shapes that have straight lines and not curved. So I like to make a lot of squares and rectangles and triangles. However, if you want your robot to have circles or ovals, you can do that because this is your own project. So I'm just cutting some shapes that I'm getting ready to glue onto my robot. I have some small squares for buttons and some computery robot-y shapes. And I'm going to just cut a big collection of rectangles and other things like that from the scraps from my other cardboard shape that I made. And if it's hard for you to cut and improvise, you can always sketch out your shapes first before you cut them so that you have an outline, such as the square. And then it's easier to remember the kind of shape that you want. So I'll just keep cutting a few more shapes because I want my robot to have a lot of cool buttons and different designs on on my robot. So I'm making different sizes and shapes of lots of squares, and mostly squares and rectangles for my robot today. And I may do a couple of triangles just to do something different. Okay, so now I have some of my shapes that I've cut, and you can put your shapes on to put them on the robot cardboard shape just to decide what type of decoration you want, and you can plan it out. So I have a square head and some rectangles for the robot's chest and a triangle for his tummy. And let's see, yeah, some squares for different buttons like that. And some rectangles for the legs. And you can be creative and organize your robot buttons any way you want on your robot shape. So this robot has eyes and a mouth and lots of different buttons all over its body. So now that I have most of my shapes ready, I can keep the other shapes and use them as scraps for my next project. So now I'm going to begin gluing. So when you glue cardboard, you just want to use a small dot. Make sure your glue is working first, and you just get a small dot. You don't need very much. And one dot is plenty of glue. So you just go around your robot and add just a small bit of glue on each shape and glue it down where you've practiced putting it down before. And just add a tiny bit of glue. And if it's a bigger shape, you can just add a couple of dots so that it's secured on there really well. And just keep gluing until you've glued down all of your robot's shapes and buttons and little computers. So I'm about halfway done, and you can just do this slowly and carefully and look closely where you're gluing, and if you make a mistake, that's okay. Just redo it and start again and make it how you want. So now I've glued all the pieces onto my robot. And so next, if you want to, you can add some shiny parts onto your robot, but it's up to you if you want to do that or not. So you can use some regular foil from the kitchen if your parents say that's okay, and you can carefully cut it into little shapes. I'm just going to make some squares today. So you can cut a long, really skinny rectangle and just chop it down and make a lot of small little squares like this. And also, if you want, you can, if you have sequins, you can use some sequins or other little shiny papers that you might recycle from candy wrappers or if you find other materials you want to use for your robot, you can improvise and make your robot however you want. So I'm going to glue down some of these little shiny pieces, just only using a small bit of glue, like this. And this adds some extra cool parts of your robot that can be shiny and shimmery and make it look extra awesome. And I'm just adding on the little shiny parts wherever I think this robot needs some extra shininess. Just adding some little buttons and squares for decoration, and I'm going to add a couple of these golden sequins on the robot's buttons. And I'm going to add a few more, and just add them wherever you want to on your own robot. And I'll give him one little shiny sequin nose for his robot button nose. So this is my shiny robot now with the foil pieces and the sequins. So now if you want, you can leave your robot like that, or you can add colors to it by using markers or paint or whatever materials you have at your home. And I'm going to add some colorful parts of my robot. So I'm going to color a couple of the buttons, and it's going to have a blue mouth and a blue computer on its arm. And you can also just draw some extra little shapes or different decorations on your robot. You can have lines or dots or anything that you decide that you want to add. Adding some different colors with markers. Just like that. And I'm going to add one more color today. I'm just going to add some pink. So we're finishing up with the color pink that I chose to finish off my robot. And just adding some more designs and decorations and colors. And you can add some decorations around the other parts that you already added. And remember, when you create part of an art piece that raises up, that's called relief. So you can see that it's coming up from the bottom. Okay. So just finishing my robot. And I think this robot's done now. So there's an example of how to create a robot. And one more thing, don't forget to write your name and the date on the back. Because then later you can remember when you created it, and if you lose it, someone will know who made it. And so when you make your robot, don't forget to send in a picture of it. And I hope you had fun with this project and you got to use your creativity and do something fun today. Have a good day. So now that we've created our robot, I hope you had fun being creative and exploring what you can make with recycled cardboard, and I hope you had a fun time and you had a great day being artistic. And if you finish your robot creation, just send it in so we can see it and share it with friends and show everyone what you made. And have a great rest of the day. Bye.